Hey guys, Mayflom here, and today I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to make a rainbow belt. So this rainbow belt inspired by a favorite character of my childhood. So what I've got here, I have a red belt that I purchased online for just a couple of dollars, and this is the only one that I could find. I wanted it wide. This is 3 inches wide, and it's stretchy, so it's very adjustable. Okay, so it's got this clip here. Now, I don't want this clip to be seen. I'm just respecting a few things about this particular belt. Number one, it's stretchy, and I want it to be so. So any adhering that I will do to the belt itself, I'll do very close to the buckle. That way I'm not really like interrupting or causing weirdness with the stretchiness of the belt. And I'm gonna make sure that this goes slightly over. Now my plan is to adhere everything on one side really tight, and on the other side put a piece of Velcro so that what can happen is everything will be attached to this side, right? And Velcro in place over here when the belt gets closed. That's just the mechanics of this, and a project like this is really important to go ahead and kind of work out the logistics before you get started. So what I have and what you'll need, I've got my ScanNCut that is getting ready, but first I'm just making some notes. I've got some scratch paper over here, and I've been making notes. 4.5 inches high is what I want my star to be, so I'm going to make a star out of felt. And then I've pulled different colors of felt to make my rainbow. Okay, and I want my rainbow to be, I'm gonna say 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 inches long and about 3 to 4, probably about 4 inches high, so a little smaller. So I'm gonna write 4 by 8, probably a little smaller than that, but you get the point. Figuring out your logistics in approximate sizes first is always a good idea. A couple of thoughts on the ScanNCut and felt. Some types of felt are going to get caught up and they really will destroy your mat. If you're not sure, a couple things to do you can take, and I'm not going to actually touch this to a mat, but you can take the corner of a mat and the corner of your felt and press it, then lift the felt and see what happens to that mat. Or you can iron on stabilizer to the felt and leave the tissue and the backing on there. This will create a surface that you can cut really easily with that will have no residue from the felt. Now this particular felt, I really don't think it's gonna be a problem. It's kind of an interesting, some of the wool felt I use is the fibers just come apart really easily. This craft felt feels almost treated. It really doesn't seem like it's going to be a problem. So I am going to go ahead and give that a test, but you do have different options. You can certainly treat it. So first things first here, I've got all my colors of felt set aside. Time to get out that ScanNCut and get some patterns going. I've got my ScanNCut out and I've picked a basic star shape. And I'm just changing this. I want the height to be 4.5 inches. And I'm going to cut 2 of them because I really am not sure if I want it to be double, just to be double thick, the star part, so that it holds up really well. And there they are. And I'm gonna do a test cut here. And if you haven't ever done one, right there on the home screen, there you go. I am gonna cut a square, just a tiny little square. I'm gonna say set, right up in the top corner should be fine, and I'm going to cut. Now, why would you want to do this? You want to do this if you're not sure about your blade. Now, I don't talk about that very often. Let me see here. Okay, so it did not even make a dent in my felt, and that was at 7 on the regular blade. So this is a pretty heavy, thick felt. I'm going to put a deep cut blade, which is an attachment that you can purchase. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that test cut once again. Now, by the way, you don't have to use the test cut function to test cut. You could always simply cut. Let's see. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So that's on 8, the deep cut blade. So this is a very heavy felt. Now, normally in my videos, guys, I don't tell you exactly what I'm setting blades at because it depends on a few things. Your blade depth depends on the material, depends on your machine, depends on your blade. What blade, how new is your blade? How much has it been used? What have you been cutting with it? All of these things change what's going to work well for you. So that's why you usually don't see me do it, but because I was doing a test cut, I thought I would share it here. So I've got a 4.5 inch high star. Going to cut 2 because I think I want to sandwich all of my rainbow pieces between the stars for more stability. I'm going to say cut. Okay. My next step here is going to be to go home, go back into that basic pattern, and now what we need is we need that semicircle. So I've got a couple of options here, and I think this is the one that's going to do the best for us. Now, it gets a little bit tricky here because we're going to want each one to be slightly smaller. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to get at the height that I think I want it, which would be 4 inches. That's, or the tallest one actually. Yeah, I want the tallest one to be 4 inches high. Okay, and that is what this puts it at, is 4 by 8. Okay, and set. And I have my pink felt, which is the felt that I want. Instead of red, I want to start with pink. So I've got it on my mat here. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to, sometimes with felt, if it's too close to the edge, or fabric, sometimes it wants to pull out a little bit. So for this one, the stars were fine, but for this one, I'm just going to move it out a little bit. And I'm going to start here, cut this out. Now what I'm going to test here is I'm going to go into the edit screen, and I am going to drop the height. I don't want the width to drop because I need it to go to this point. So I'm going to try, so I had it at 4. So I'm going to try 3 1/4 and say okay. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut this on scratch paper because I want to see, and I'm showing you this part because if you're trying to make costume pieces or design that kind of stuff, a lot of times this is really a big part of the process, and it should be so quick that I should not have to even, almost done. So I don't even have to stop the video, I'll show you exactly what I'm doing here. Okay, so here comes that paper. So this is going to be the same width, but it's not quite going to work the same. However, what I think I can do, I've got a couple different options here. So I think actually the way that this looks, I don't quite like that. I think what would work better, and let me get another piece of scratch paper because we're going to try again here. This is why I go with paper when I knew I wanted this. I knew that this is exactly what I want it to be right here. Look at that. That's going to be so cute. Okay, so I know that this part is what I want, but it's all those little parts. Do I want to just make thin pieces that I stitch over? Do I want to layer? How do I want that to work out? When we're working on the logistics of a project like this, take a moment, slow it down, and I'm going to do a couple more test runs on scratch paper and find out the best approach for this. So after a couple of different test runs, this is simply shrinking it by 3/4 of an inch each time. I could probably do a little less. However, I really like what that does space-wise. I like how it looks. And what I think, oh yeah, there's my test cuts. What I think here is that if when I get done, you know, I can line everybody up here as I go along. And when I get it how I like it, when I'm all the way done, if I need to, I can always take scissors and trim so that it has the larger shape. I can't quite get this all exactly perfect without custom, and I can custom make the exact specifications, draw it, scan it in, carry on from there. I just think it's gonna be a lot quicker, a lot easier, and a lot more precise if I do it this way and then use scissors to trim any excess that I don't want after the fact. And go back in and select that one beautiful design that works so well. And then, so I'm going to be going 3.25, 2.5, 1.75 for my heights. And whatever the width is fine. We're not going to worry about the width. Set. Okay. And then now here's something I can do. Now that I'm in here and doing this, something that I can do, and I've got my handy dandy felt on here. When I go to edit this, I'm just going to go ahead and show you this now. So after I cut this yellow and I bring in the green, what I can do is hit this button right here and just go down to the next size, which would be 2.5, like so. And cut. I don't have to keep going all the way back out and getting the new pattern every time. I can just continue to edit, then say, okay, although let me edit that back to be where I want it for this particular one. I can just go and say, okay, cut, and repeat those steps. So here I ended up getting 5 in. So I went with a 1/2 inch difference instead of 3/4, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. So I'm going like so, putting my stars in here, and what I can see right away, what I'm going to want to do underneath these stars, I'm not going to want that much bulk. So being very conservative to start, I will cut a bit of that felt off, and I know that seems crazy to go for that and do that, but trust me, you're going to want to cut a little bit of that off to start so you don't have so much bulk. Okay, and then I will sit here and kind of play with that. And then once I'm happy with all of the pieces, the next step that I'm going to do, it really did get quite bulky there down at the bottom. I'm really okay with that though. I feel like that's going to work out just fine. So I've got different approaches here. If you don't want to stitch, you could hot glue this. You could hot glue all of this together just fine. If you would prefer to stitch, you absolutely could. And remember how I was saying about this, about how, you know, it's how it looks if you want to cut so that some of that is in there. I'm just looking at, if I did that to this purple, what would be left of the purple? And the answer is very, very little. So I'd want to be careful if I decide to trim any of that. It would take away most of the purple, okay? But I need to look at all of these details, and if I feel like it's too bulky, I actually think that the heft of this is going to work to my advantage. I did want to, mostly under these stars, I don't want underneath these stars to be so thick. That's why I trimmed off quite a bit. I want under the stars to really just basically be the 2 stars. I don't mind a little bit right here. I think this is going to turn out, oops, one more layer. I think this is going to turn out really well. So what I'm going to do is, starting with the first 2 layers, and I'll just share a couple of photos, still photos in the video here of this process. What I'm going to do is just take 2 layers at a time, starting with the top layer. And I'm going to take my sewing machine and just stitch that. So I'm not stitching all of these layers together. I'm going to stitch the purple to the blue, and then I'm going to stitch the blue to the green, and then I'll stitch the green to the yellow to the pink, and then around the pink edge decorative stitch, just so that it has its own stitch as well. So here you can see I've got all the pieces sewn on, and this was so much fun. And then I sewed the top edge and the bottom edge here, just so that it was all kind of finished looking here. And you can see how you can still flip through here somewhat. Now I can stitch, or I can do more stitching if I need to, but I wanted to stop at this point so that I could sandwich this in my, and I didn't do this underside yet because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do about that. So I can sandwich this in my stars, and a little more does need to get trimmed off. I wanted to have a little extra versus, and don't worry about that, I'm going to glue all of that to make sure it all stays nice in there. And let's see here. Yeah, that'll work really nicely. So once I've got these down, now my next decision is how I want to stitch the star. If I want it to look the same as this, then what I would want to do is just stitch this single layer, much like I did this pink here. Just do an edge stitch all the way around it to make it look the same separately, and then use hot glue and glue everybody together if I want to do it that way. if I want to stitch through all of this, at, you know, at its thickest, there's 4 layers, 5, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 layers of felt. I probably don't want to put this through my machine, although I think it's possible. So what I think I'm going to do is actually try to start it through my machine first and see how that goes, because I do like the idea of the stitching being universal here, having the stitching be all the same. The only thing left to do is stitch this in place. Look how cute it is. So the way I'm gonna do this, you might notice I'm not centering it on the belt because I don't want the belt buckle part to show. So the star is going to hide that buckle part. So what I am going to do is pin this down here, use this to sew here. So I'm going to make sure that the buckle is covered, and then I will just stitch along these edges here. And then after that is stitched, what I will do is sort out on the side over here where exactly I want my Velcro piece to go. But I'm gonna go ahead and just stitch this in place first because I feel like that'll be a lot easier to sort out. Your last step here would be to pick a spot on here. You can see that I've got this stitched. I used white thread so you could see it for the video, and I'll add a little more stitching here after I'm absolutely sure I like how this is laying down. Now you've got 2 options. So Velcro would be really good because you would just buckle the belt when you put it on, and then Velcro here, smash it down, there you go. If you don't have Velcro, if you're in a rush, whatever the reason may be, here's another option for you. So you could also, since this is an elastic belt, you could also just take a safety pin and just run it through a layer or 2 of felt. And yes, you absolutely could do this with it on. I tested it. Okay, so there's a quick hack if you're trying to do no-sew on this, because remember I told you you could use glue, and you absolutely could have. You could hot glue this down, no problem. But look how cute that is. And now I've got a rainbow. I feel like a superhero. Gonna have my homemade rainbow belt here to wear with my blue dress as I attend Gen Con. I'm very excited about that. And I hope you have enjoyed this little costume DIY. So many applications you can do. And honestly, I'm thinking instead of belt buckles, we can get some really fun felted things to put on and dress up our outfits. If you have any questions, let me know, and stay tuned because I have got more costume videos coming your way.